Let's jump into our Roto-World player news. Of course, for all your Roto-World player news, go to NBCSports.com. And we start with the Giants 49ers Thursday Night Football. 49ers end up winning big like we expected. The spread was around 10.5 points. The Niners win by 18 points. And I think the story, Jay, from a fantasy perspective, of course, is that Brandon Ayuk doesn't play. San Francisco's big three, other big three, they have big nights starting with Deebo Samuel.
Yep, Deebo Samuel occasionally does remind us that in 2021 he was the second best wide receiver in football after Cooper Kupp, and when he does get the workload and the usage, he can still be an absolute monster. He cashed our plus 600, 100 plus receiving yards bet on DraftKings from yesterday, 12 targets. He could have had a bigger game, to be honest, but he forced 6 missed tackles. I don't think anyone else in the NFL has forced more than 5 all season across all games. So, he was the story and a reminder of exactly what he can do, Connor.
Barry, and it wasn't just Deebo, although Deebo had a huge night. George Kittle catches 7 passes for 90 yards. Christian McCaffrey goes off for 85 yards rushing and, of course, gets the touchdown, adds in 5 receptions. I mean, the bottom line is, Barry, this offense is exactly who we thought they would be. Brock Purdy is supporting multiple players under Kyle Shanahan.
I certainly don't think Kittle's game would have been as big without Brandon Ayuk, but traditionally, like, the Giants struggle, and the fact of the matter is George Kittle targeted on 26% of his routes. Pretty good number here. And so without Ayuk, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't know that there's much to say here. Like, Kittle's a top 5 fantasy tight end. I think there's going to be good weeks and bad weeks. He certainly was better than Darren Waller in this one. We'll get to the Giants in a second, but I mean, he was good. We expect him to be good. I think what we said on the show yesterday was you're starting Kittle, you're starting Deebo, you're starting all these guys, and Brock Purdy was on the love list for a reason. His first 300-yard game, and as always, 2 touchdowns.
All is well if you started your 49ers this week in fantasy. All is not well if you had to start anyone, it seems like, from the New York Giants, Jay. Daniel Jones, sure, 22 of 32. A lot of quick game in Brian Daboll's offense to keep that San Francisco pass rush off balance. Only 137 passing yards, no touchdowns through the air. He does throw the interception. That was a prop bet Barry gave out when we did our best bets for Thursday Night Football. That cashed. And, Jay, you even said it when we did our preview of this game. Don't expect much from the backfield despite no Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Breida played almost all the snaps and got 4 carries because of just how insane the game script was against the Giants. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Daniel Jones played that badly. I don't think he never had a chance.
Not much to work with.
Yeah, with the offensive line up against Nick Bosa, who got his first sack of the season. Daniel Jones, he just never had a prayer. Couldn't even really get the space out to run for his life because his life was over so quickly as the pass rush came in on him. Just quickly, on Brock Purdy, I think there's the idea that, Brock Purdy is a game manager, a kind of Trent Dilfer type. They let him go to work in this offense. This is not a super conservative offense. They let him throw on 2nd and short, on 3rd and short, instead of just running the ball. I mean, he threw the ball 37 times in what was effectively a blowout. So he's a guy who I think is going to be a viable fantasy starter a lot of weeks, Connor.
So coming off that, Barry, I'll ask you, do we see maybe a higher ceiling for Brock Purdy than maybe we anticipated over the summer now that Kyle Shanahan has given him the keys and says, listen, I have no problem having you drop back and push the ball down the field a little bit to all these weapons?
Yeah, there was a couple of concerns about Brock Purdy from a fantasy perspective coming into the season. One was, would he keep the job all year, right? You have Sam Darnold there. You have Trey Lance, who has a lot of draft capital. The fact is Brock Purdy doesn't run as well. And so even if he, quote, kept the job all year, were they going to let him throw, or is it going to be more of a game manager type role? This is a guy that was the literally last pick in the NFL draft last year. And so, and we've seen previous quarterbacks under Kyle Shanahan be a little bit more game managery-ish, if you will, Jimmy Garoppolo being the most recent example. But I'm with Jay here. 37 times he dropped back, and if you watch the game, some of those throws, like the first touchdown was a little bit of a prayer. Just, I'm going to throw it up and let the rookie make a play. So the fact is that you get a lot of padded stats. Like, I don't have the yards after catch, but I mean, I don't know. Deebo just could not be tackled. I was on Instagram last night, and I saw a brilliant reenactment of what Deebo was like out there among all these mortals, right? And so, are we pushing that picture? There we go. There it is. There's Jay Croucher, defenders hanging off Deebo. Deebo didn't actually carry anyone the way Jay is in this picture. But once again, if you want to see Jay Croucher's really cute kids learn about sports betting, his Instagram is a must follow. But your daughters are adorable. There's no question about that, Jay. But yeah, I mean, like, literally it was Deebo can't be stopped. So we talked about this yesterday with Brock Purdy, right? Is that like a 5-yard out to Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel that then turn into a 25-yard counts as 25 yards passing. And they are being more aggressive. When those with that play caller and Kyle Shanahan and those offensive weapons around him, along with a really good offensive line, I do think Brock Purdy is kind of a borderline top 12 fantasy quarterback. Like he's in the, I mean, again, Cousins has been red hot for the first 2 weeks of the season, but he's kind of in that Kirk Cousins range. Like you'd rather have him than Derek Carr. You'd rather have him than a lot of I think you can make an argument like, who would you rather have, like Brock Purdy or Geno Smith, Brock Purdy or Jared Goff? I think I still prefer Geno and Goff, but I think it's a conversation and it's close, Jay, and that's the point.
It is close. And in that photo, I only had 2 defenders hanging off me. I needed an extra 2 daughters to really replicate what Deebo had. I have 1 more daughter, but not a 4th. And my wife has put a line through that, Connor, and as have I. I think with Brock Purdy, the thing is that he does throw it up for grabs. Like, he's making aggressive throws, both those touchdowns. And the first touchdown pass in particular was an excellent throw. That was the only place where he could put it where the defender didn't have a chance. And Brock Purdy, it was an adventure last night. Like, he turned George Kittle into Sauce Gardner, that one play where Kittle had to break up the interception.
The seatbelt celebration.
Yeah, exactly. And he probably could have been picked once or twice more on top of that. But he does make aggressive throws down the field in addition to the yak stuff. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a viable starter most weeks.
Yeah, I think from the fantasy perspective, you like that he's, I don't want to call him a gunslinger, but he definitely has little fear in an offense that the playmakers will probably help you out more often than not.
And also, Connor, the one thing I will say about Brock Purdy, he has no fear in the pocket. He stares down the pass rush. That is the one thing that I think is really special about him. And because he does that, it allows these routes to unfold where he can throw it down the field because he is willing to take those hits.
Yeah, and even better, you saw a lot of moving pockets last night from Kyle Shanahan, which only buys him more time. All right, let's take a look at all the injuries we've been tracking this week. Of course, a lot of DNPs did not practice from Thursday, and Jalen Waddle still dealing.
Connor.
Go ahead.
Connor, before we move on, I just want to make one point about the Giants. We talked a little bit about the Niners, but just one last point about the Giants. Listen, it was a lost game for them. I understand if you're a Darren Waller manager, you're going to be very frustrated. I still believe in Darren Waller. They tried to get him the ball. They absolutely tried to get him the ball, and I think they'll have more success against teams that aren't as good as the 49ers. They play Seattle next week, and that's a defense. They'll have 10 days to prepare for the Seahawks next week. And I also think, again, we said, hey, avoid this backfield, and I think that's still the right advice. But I will say that if you're desperate for a running back here, Matt Breida, what we talked about yesterday, I should say, is that if you had to start a Giants running back, Matt Breida should be the guy. And he's the guy that, ended up getting into the end zone. He had 4 for 17. He did catch a couple of balls as well. Brightwell's, I think at least 2 of his rushes came when they were just basically running out the clock. Remember, Tyrod Taylor made an appearance in this game at the end as well because they were just getting blown out. So I do think that while you got bailed out if you started Matt Breida yesterday because he got you the touchdown, it still wasn't a huge game. I do think better days are ahead because we've heard news that Taylor Rooks from Amazon Prime and Bleacher Report reporting that Saquon Barkley has a high ankle sprain, which makes you think this 3-week timeline is, probably pretty accurate for anyone that thought, oh, maybe Saquon's coming back because he was, quote, close to playing, according to Brian Daboll. It feels like it is a high ankle sprain. And so knowing that Breida's going to be the guy for at least the next couple of weeks, I think there's some low-end RB2 value there now that the schedule gets easier. Seattle is a team that I think the Giants will be able to run on.
Yep, and even after that, they played Miami the week after. Saquon is still out. The Chargers were able to run all over Miami in week 1. And with Breida, I mean, look, he only had 4 carries, but the thing is that the Giants had the ball for 20 minutes out of an hour.
Short week on the West Coast.
They ran 46 plays all night. They just never had the ball at all. And in the first half, when it was a game, Matt Breida played 21 of the 24 snaps. So he is clearly the guy. Like, if you're just looking at the box score, it looks like Brightwell, it was even, but it wasn't. Brightwell got a couple carries at the end.
Yeah, and that's Daboll's guy. I mean, Daboll had him in Buffalo. Daboll brings him to the Giants. It's the Matt Breida show for the Giants until Saquon gets right. And high ankle, that's not what you want to hear. That's something that absolutely lingers.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.